I realized early on that these student loans are basically small business loans, and the business is you, and you're maybe not such a great business. Look, if they call them small business loans, no 18-year-old kid would ever get the loan because it's a bad idea for a business. If you had to go to the bank, to the small business desk and ask me like, yeah, I'm going to need $150,000, they'd be like, all right, what's your business idea? All right, here's the idea. For the next 4 years, I'm going to get blackout drunk. But also, I'm going to get a degree in sociology.
Welcome to Money Unplugged. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for being here. As I mentioned last week, April is Financial Literacy Month. If you look at the people who have been on the show, particularly over the past few weeks, they are very much in keeping with that theme. And it continues today because my guest is Brian Feroldi. And I don't need more than one hand to count the number of people I know who are as genuinely passionate about spreading financial literacy as Brian is. His writing, the work he does as co-founder of the company Long-Term Mindset, all of the videos that he does on YouTube, as well as his great book called Why Does the Stock Market Go Up? Everything You Should Have Been Taught About Investing in School But Weren't. And we talked a lot about his experiences in school. He chose his college major for two reasons. It saved him $5,000 a year in tuition, and his classes happened to be full of women. After graduating, Brian was a salesman for a medical device company, and he was putting about 40,000 miles a year on his car in that job. But he used all that time behind the wheel to learn about investing. And now he is one of the most followed financial educators online. This is a fun one, so let's get into it with Brian Feroldi. You were born in Rhode Island, right?
I was actually born in Kentucky, lived there for a total of 2 months, and then moved to Rhode Island. So while I've lived in Rhode Island my whole life, I was technically born in Kentucky.
What is the earliest memory you have when it comes to money?
Probably going to the bank with my mom and standing in a line. For those that don't know, you used to have to physically go into the bank and then stand in line and wait to do things like deposit money and take money out. Thankfully, every bank I ever went to had lollipops that were available for free as a kid.
Know.
So that was probably my earliest memory of money. And I didn't mind going to the bank with my mom because I always got a lollipop out of it. But she did open up savings account for us with the passbook things pretty early age. So as I put birthday money and stuff in there, grew my little account. And that was my first introduction to the concept of interest, which was eye-opening.
Eye-opening, and I've said this before on the show, a little suspicious. Like, that was my
Exactly.
reaction, was just sort of like, wait, you're just going to give me money? Why is
Right.
that?
I have money and you give me money, and the more money I have, the more money you give. How does that work? That sounds great.
Was there an expectation from your parents that birthday money or any money you earned, like, hey, a chunk of this or some percentage has to go in to the savings account? Like, was it talked about in that way?
Not so much. I think I'm a firm believer that some people are born savers and some people are born spenders. There's no doubt in my mind I was born a saver. I was always somebody that liked to see my bank account go up. I mean, even as a kid, I would take lunch money that my parents would give me. I would buy candy with it, and then I wouldn't eat the candy. I would actually just bring it home and build my collection of candy. So for whatever reason, I had the natural saving gene built into me from birth.
I thought you were going to say that you would like buy candy and then like sell it back to your classmates at a premium.
That would have been amazing if I could do that. And the power of convenience, I definitely could have done that at a premium. So maybe I'll teach my kids to do that.
What was the first job you had when you were a kid?
So the first job that I have, like when I officially got a paycheck, not mowing the lawn or babysitting or things like that, I was a camp counselor at my local town camp. So it was like 4 hours a day, 5 days a week over the summer, where I was basically put in charge of 25 third graders for a couple of hours, and had a loosely unstructured day at this park that had fields to play. There was a candy store there. There was a place you could go swimming, things like that. And I vividly vividly remember at the end of the week, I would make like $55 after tax for working the entire week, which was pretty much just enough to fill up the gas tank to get back and forth to work and buy a CD.
Was that a job that you did once and then the next summer you went looking for something else?
No, it was a super fun job. Like I had friends that were there, and it's a very low stress job. You're basically playing like capture the flag and kickball while you're hanging out in the shade and eating candy. So it was a pretty cushy job. I rode that out as long as I could.
What did your dad do?
My dad was in finance, an accountant by training. And at the height of his career, he was the CFO of a publicly traded company out of Massachusetts. So they were a relatively smaller company that he became the CFO of, and he did a lot of like M&A, that kind of thing. Was
your mom working outside the home?
Yeah, she worked for the ALS Association, just a fundraiser for them. That was basically her career. She really enjoyed charity work.
So your dad working for a public company, is that where you get your first introduction to investing in the stock market and that sort of thing?
So the company that he worked for the majority of his career was private. And it wasn't until after I was out of college that it got bought by a public company and he became the public entity. But now that I've been investing for so many years, we've had very detailed conversations about acquisitions. And whenever I have detailed accounting questions, I do go to him. So I think that he enjoys having somebody in his family that actually understands the language of business with him.
Let's move on to college then. You went to University of Connecticut?
That's correct. And we just had a heck of a big win over Duke the other night.
Yes, you did. Yes, you absolutely did. I think most of America was cheering for you in that regard.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Am I correct? You got a degree in business?
Yes, I'm from Rhode Island and I went to University of Connecticut and I just applied general to the business school. And my first day there when I was picking a major, they were like, if you say your major is healthcare management, you qualify for regional tuition, so you save $5,000 per year. And I was like, guess my major is healthcare management.
Wow.
So that's how I ended up choosing my major. It was the cheapest major that I could have chosen in the school of business.
Was it even a close decision for you? Like was healthcare management something you were even aware of or thinking, okay, somewhere in the realm of business, I'm considering this, or was it purely just financial? Was it just like, I'm going to save $5,000?
It was purely financial. They basically said, you take all the core business classes and then you just take a few extra, and those few extra classes that I had to take turned out to be me, 2 guys, and 30 girls. So I was like, I can handle this.
That's some good math.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
From a social standpoint.
Yeah.
So you graduate with that degree. Do you then go into healthcare management?
Yeah, so for sheer luck through a family friend out of college, I got a job at a startup outside of Boston. This was a startup medical device company that was off of venture capital money, and they were on year 3. So when I joined, pretty much the next month they got FDA approval, and then 3 months after that they started to commercialize the product. And just again, sheer luck on my part. That company is called Insulet Corporation, which last I looked is worth $15 billion. So I lucked out from the get-go to join a company in the startup phase that just so happened to become phenomenally successful.
What were you doing for them?
So initially I was doing marketing and regulatory stuff. So my claim to fame was I was the first one to make the user guide for the product, which is highly detailed technical work that really got me to know the product super well. And then 2 years in, I was offered a job in sales, and that like doubled my salary and got me an expense account. So I obviously jumped on that opportunity. And working in sales is fantastic because you basically work out of your house. So I was doing remote work well before it was like really a popular thing. So I really enjoyed sales. It put me outside my comfort zone, but it's very highly compensated and you control your schedule to a large degree. So those were huge benefits.
Were you traveling around New England? Were you like flying and driving everywhere? Or was it just purely making calls out of your home?
Constantly. No, I was a road warrior. I would do 40 to 45,000 miles in my car every year. So that afforded me, though, plenty of time to listen to audiobooks. And, a lot of my coworkers at the time, I would talk to them like, what do you do in the car all day? And they'd be like, I listen to Howard Stern. And I would be like, what a waste of time. I was listening to audiobooks and learning about investing and listening to conference calls. So I very much gave myself a PhD in business and investing while driving around in my car.
So is that when that starts for you?
Yeah, so my love affair with investing really started a little bit before that. When I graduated, I was completely money illiterate. I knew nothing about money. I knew how to save money, no idea about investing or how business worked or anything like that. And by the way, I say that as someone that, as I remind you, graduated with a degree in business. So that should tell you about the state of our education at the university level. I never had a class on the S&P 500 or compounding or anything like that. But when I graduated, my dad handed me a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, very popular book in the mid-2000s. I read that thing cover to cover in like 48 hours. And it was the first time that I'd ever heard concepts like the rich buy assets that produce income and the power of compounding and all of those concepts. So while looking back today, I think that book has a bunch of flaws in it. It was very much a gateway drug to introducing me to the concept of money and business and finance. So for that reason, I'm forever thankful for that book.
Now, at some point, you go and get your MBA. What drove that decision for you? Because if you've got the business degree, you're spending time in the car improving your intelligence level on investing by listening to audiobooks, consuming conference calls. Why did you feel the need to get an MBA?
Oh, that's very simple. My company changed their policy about reimbursement on MBAs and graduate plan. So they said, hey, if you go and get an MBA and you get a B, if you get a B or better in class, we'll essentially reimburse you 100% for up to $6,000 per year. So my home state, the University of Rhode Island, I actually did the math out. And because it was $6,000 per year and it'd take me about 3 years to get my MBA, the net cost to me to get that MBA was going to be about $5,000. So given how low of a dollar cost it was to me, I decided to go for it.
Was the experience in the classroom, did you feel like it was easier for you because of the work you had put in, just sort of consuming books and audiobooks, et cetera?
Somewhat, but as soon as I went back to school and we were learning about detailed statistical analysis and things like beta and those academic concepts about investing, I mean, I was the one in the class that was basically like, I don't agree with anything of what this guy is saying right now. So I knew enough to kind of push back and be like, that's not how things work in the real world at all, or that's not been my experience at all. So my knowledge of investing, it gave me firepower to actually push back against the professors more than anything else.
You were Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School.
Exactly.
When he goes to his Econ 101 class, and he's just like, no, you missed a whole bunch of stuff.
Boy, is that a fantastic movie.
It's a sneaky good business movie. How much did you and your wife talk about money before you got married?
Not much. She's not a very money-driven person, and she knows that I am a very money-driven person. So I think for her, she just is kind of choreographed in her mind. Brian handles the money and the finances, and she's very good about saving money and getting a deal and all that kind of thing. She's not what you would call a shopper. She never has enjoyed shopping. It's one of the reasons I was attracted to her in the first place. But she's really not interested in money and finance. Every year I sit down and I show her our net worth statement. She looks at it and she's like, okay. So that's about the extent of our conversations about money.
Are you trying to, pass along this love of investing to any of your children? And if so, how is that going?
Absolutely. I am a huge fan of passing on the education that I learned. So I found a kind of sneaky, interesting way to do it. So I know that there's no way that my kids would sit down with me and watch a presentation that I made about investing or how the market works. I know that there's no way that they would do that. But when they were in elementary school, I volunteered in their classrooms and I taught the class about money and investing and how investing works and what the stock market is. And in that setting, not only were they forced to watch me do it, but I made it as fun as possible. And they saw the other kids raising their hands and asking questions. The teachers were raising hands and asking questions. So I started out just in my kids' individual classroom. It turns out that the classroom next to me overheard that and asked if I would come in and do that for them. I said yes, and then I just expanded from there. So even to this day, I don't have kids in elementary school anymore, but I go in and I do a stock picking contest for 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade because I built up such a rapport with the teachers. But that gave me a license to have my kids sit down, absorb information about the stock market over a period of years, and they all still know everything I said.
I like that you basically went around your own children, that you basically were like, hey, we could do this in our living room, but if you don't want to do that, I'll make you do this in front of all of your friends and classmates.
Yep. I didn't make it that explicit. I more knew how they were going to be. And even today, my son is now has a job where he's making a little bit of money. And we signed up for a Greenlight account. And through there, you could actually make investments in the stock market, which is something I like about it. And then when I was talking through with him about that, I was like, hey, do you want to pick your own stocks? And he was like, no. And I was like, all right, fine. You're an index fund kind of investor. We'll just put you in index funds and call it a day. And to me, that's totally fine. I just want them to know how the stock market works. And they all have that foundational education now.
Coming up, Brian and I talk about the late, great Charlie Munger and his approach to investing. And if you're an investor looking to increase your knowledge, you got to check out Ticker. With Ticker, you get access to the same kind of data that the Wall Street pros use, but Ticker makes it simple enough for everyday investors like you and me. You just go to Ticker, type in the name of a public company, and you will instantly see years of financials, analyst forecasts, insider trades, all in one place. And you can try it for free when you go to ticker.com/unplugged. You can discover for yourself what 500,000 investors already know, that using Ticker is like having your own personal Bloomberg terminal. It gives you an easy way to get investing ideas and learn from the best, because one more way you can use it is to track big name money managers to see what they are buying and selling. Save time and try it for free by going to ticker.com/unplugged. That's TIKR.com/unplugged. It is the cleanest, easiest way to look deeper into any stock and see what the pros are doing. All right, let's get back to Brian. I want to ask you a question about Charlie Munger, because I know you're a big fan of Charlie Munger. You've written and talked about how, he has helped inform the way that you think about investing. And I'm curious if there is a specific quote or investing idea of Charlie Munger's that you wish more people knew about.
Probably the one that comes to mind is how much he emphasized the importance of knowing incentives and how that can dictate the outcome. I think his most famous quote on that is, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. And another one that he has is something along the lines of, all my life I've been in the top 5% of knowing that incentives are important, and all my life I've underestimated just how important they are. I mean, Charlie Munger has shared so many important concepts about not just money and business, but just philosophies on life. It's impossible to boil him down to just one quote, but the thing that sticks out to me about when I think about him is the power of an incentives and how you really have to think about those before you think about anything else.
And I don't know about you. I mean, when I think about investing and incentives in public companies, my brain immediately goes to the CEO and sort of their compensation. But it's clear how powerful Munger thought incentives were, that, he would get granular in terms of like, well, no, it's not just the CEO and what the CEO is being paid. It's also the sales staff. It trickles down through the entire company. Like, what is everyone at the company, regardless of level, incentivized to do? And is that going to make its way back to shareholders?
Yeah, one thing that I really loved about him and Buffett in particular is that they're firmly against stock-based compensation. And one reason that they are so against it is that stock-based compensation puts your incentive inside a factor that's outside of your control. You have no control over the stock price of a company. If you're the VP of sales, the VP of engineering, the chief hiring officer, that kind of thing, if you're paid in stock, then you're paid in something, but you have no control over that thing. So one thing that Buffett has said is, if you insist on paying stock-based compensation, only pay the CEO stock-based compensation, because they're the one that actually has control over all of the levers of the business. For everybody else, just do cash bonuses on something that they have explicit control over. When he said it like that, I was like, I think he's 100% correct. I don't know how you would argue with that. So that has really shaped my thinking about how I think about stock-based compensation, which is a very easy thing to screw up. And I think that most public companies today totally screw that up.
Let's go to the speed round. What is a thing you have bought that makes you happy?
I'm not a big thing purchaser, but if you force me to say something, I'll say my Tesla Model Y. I bought a Tesla for myself back in 2020. I way overpaid for it, and it was the most expensive thing I've ever purchased. And now it looks very horribly outdated compared to the modern ones. But every time I get in my Tesla, I just have a smile on my face. I absolutely love it.
Well, and with the price of gas going up all across America, yeah, I'm guessing that smile's a little bit bigger these days.
That doesn't hurt.
Have you ever made a purchase you regret and sometimes you still think about it?
I'm not a big regret person, especially when it comes to wasting or losing money, because I'm a big believer that you get either the thing or a lesson, and I think there's this great value in the lesson. But if you force me to name something you regret, I'll say my MBA. Even though it cost me just a couple $1,000, the real thing that it cost me was a couple of years of my life when my kids were younger, and that put a lot of stress on my wife, because I was away when she would have 3 small kids and had to get them fed and in bed and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think I'll be using my MBA in my career at all. So yeah, if you force me to name something you regret, I'll go with my MBA.
Well, no, that is something that's come up on the show before, just the concept of, time being something that can be spent as well. And that can work for you and against you. So it sounds like it's not the outlay of cash for the MBA that you regret, because, as you said, it wasn't a lot with the reimbursement you were getting from your company. But in terms of time, yeah, particularly when kids are little. What's the last thing you splurged on just for yourself, not for your wife or kids or anyone else?
The last thing I splurged on was every year me and my buddies in my town go up and we rent a big ski house together at Loon Mountain in New Hampshire, and we go skiing and drink and have food and stuff for a couple of days. And as far as vacation goes, it's actually pretty cheap. It's just a few $100s per person because you're splitting it over so many people. But that is something that I splurge on happily every year.
And in terms of skiing, it was a good year to be in New England. Very
good year for New England skiing.
What is something about money that you wish you knew earlier in life?
It's got to be compound interest. I mean, I don't know how you learn about compound interest at any stage in your life and not have your life just completely change. When you see a money growing over time and just compounding on itself, and the free gains that you get from that, they just become life-changing numbers eventually. Now, I didn't learn about compound interest until I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I was 22 when I learned that, which thankfully was like just in time. I was just starting to earn enough money to actually be able to save. And it was the right time of my life. So that was definitely the thing that I really wish that everyone knew about money.
Do you think that part of the challenge with compound interest is you can understand it intellectually when you're younger, but it takes on a whole new meaning when you're older and you actually see it in action? I mean, just speaking for myself, at some point, looking at my investment account, it just meant more in terms of seeing compound interest at work when I was older, because the numbers get bigger and it's like, oh, right, yeah. Even though, yes, was it compounding when I was in my 20s? Yes, it was, but the numbers were just smaller. I don't know. I feel like it just hits you on an emotional level once you get older.
I think you're spot on with that. When you're only compounding, say, $100 or $1,000, it hits differently than when you're compounding $100,000 or $1 million, right? They're just completely different feelings. I will say this. One thing that confused the heck out of me when it came to compounding was how compounding worked in the stock market. Because if you look at the S&P 500, for example, all I saw was a line. I was like, where's this compounding that happens? Like, I don't even understand. I just see a line going up. Where is the compounding? So if you were confused like I was, it turns out that they measure the returns of the S&P 500 from January 1st to December 31st each year. And then the next day, they start all over again and they start computing differently. So that's how the market compounds. It took me years after I learned about compound interest that I learned that's how compounding in the stock market worked.
As we both know, part of the challenge with compound interest and just sort of the concept of it is there's a healthy percentage of people just aren't that interested in investing. They're not that interested in money. We all need money. We all use money. But some of us are just more interested in the investing end of it and therefore the compound interest part of it.
For sure. What a gift it is to be interested in the topic of money, which is something that bores most people, or even the topic of investing. Thankfully, even if you're not interested in money, you can just set up an automatic investment program into index funds and never have to think about it again, and you'll do just fine. So how thankful we should be that we live in a world where doing that just requires a couple of clicks.
What is a charitable cause that you like to support?
The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So we have lost family members to leukemia and lymphoma. Horrible, horrible disease. So we like to support that.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV series that has money as a through line?
I don't know how you could possibly not answer Shark Tank to that question. To me, Shark Tank is such a great TV show. It's bite-sized chunks. They're like 10 minutes long, so short enough that even like my kid's attention span can last there. They cover business and business models. They cover valuation. They cover negotiation. To me, it's a fabulous, phenomenal show.
If you could wave a magic wand, would you want to be on Shark Tank? Not pitching a product, but
that would be awesome. Although I am such a sucker, I'm like, I want to invest in that. I want to invest in that. I want to invest in that.
The last thing is a penny for your thoughts. And this is just any sort of life wisdom that you've picked up along the way that you can share with people who are listening. It doesn't have to be about money. It can be anything.
Well, to me, the first step to anything that you want to do that really pays off in the long term always starts the same way. It's educate yourself. No matter what topic you want to get interested in or what topic impacts your life, the very first step is to educate yourself. We are so unbelievably spoiled today that no matter what platform you like to consume content on, there's almost guaranteed to be a way that you can learn about that topic in the format that you like to consume. You can go on TikTok and learn about money and investing, or you can also learn about health. Now, the downside is you have to be able to wade through all the garbage out there to find the gold. But how lucky are we that you can learn an immense amount about any subject instantly in the format that you want. But to me, step one to anything that pays off in the long term of life, educate yourself.
There you go. Check out Brian's book as well as what he's doing online. I included links in the episode description. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with someone in your life that you think would like it too. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.